Hello, Donna here. Welcome to my channel. Now the topic of this basic tutorial is how to make this little domino ring using faux bone. Now I have another basic tutorial about how this was made. So please, if you need to, go back and watch that and make this slab. Now, I'm going to wait until the end to tell you what materials you need. So I would suggest you watch the whole thing through and then you will get the materials list. This way, I won't forget anything. Okay, so I've got my slab and I have black clay that has been rolled through setting number 3 on my pasta machine. Okay. Because, as you can see, this particular ring is composed of 2 layers, black on the back, and then you've got this faux bone on the top. All right, so let's get to it. Now, some of my basic tutorials are actually featuring something that I design, and what we're going to use today is this ring template. It's sized from 4 all the way to 12 in whole sizes. Now it comes with this plastic protective layer on it. You've got to get that off. So once you get it off, what I would suggest you do with this template and with others is that you sand the back of it because it's very slick and smooth. It's acrylic, and that is what clay likes to stick to the very best. Right? So we don't really want this to stick to clay. So this will help us out. Take a coarse grit sanding block and just sand the back of the template. Now I'm going to sand it over here off to the side because I don't want to get these any acrylic bits in my clay. So I'll just do a little bit, and it doesn't take long and it doesn't take a lot of effort. You just want to rough up the surface on the back. Now this has an added benefit. It's easier to see the template on your work surface. Okay, that's enough. Let me wipe it off and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, now here's the black clay, and whoops, this area has not been sanded. This area has been. So you can see that I have roughed up the surface nicely. This will help you a lot. Any of your acrylic templates, this will help because you can put it down and it's less likely to stick. Whereas when you take and you stick the unsanded part of the template down, it just picks the clay right up. And this side doesn't really even want to stick at all. So do that first before you use your template. Now the ring is actually wider. You see, wider than the cane. Basically, this is a faux bone cane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the cane itself wider. Rather than piece together, I'm going to make it wider, like so. All right. Like this, and it is plenty wide now. All right, stand it up and cut a thick slice. And this is probably 4 millimeters. So slowly cut and try to cut straight down so that you have a uniformly thick sheet. It's the goal. don't always make it, but this is pretty good actually. Okay, now I'm going to roll this through the thickest setting of my pasta machine. Make sure your machine is clean. All right, here we go. Here it is. And I am going to press it to this sheet of black clay. Now you can see I'm working on this deli paper. I want to work on it because I don't want the clay to stick to my marble surface. Okay, there we go. Now, you can take this template and you can try on just by putting your fingers through the hole, see what size you want. And I can get the 6 on and I can get the 7. The 8 is too big. The 5 is too small for me. So I'm going to do 6 because I will be sanding the hole and enlarging it slightly. So I'm going to use 6. I'm going to put it right there on the sheet. And now I'm going to take a needle tool and I'm going to slowly trace the ring cutout, just taking it down a little bit at a time until I cut the entire hole. I used to use a scalpel for this, but I think this works better actually. And as long as you do this gradually, a bit at a time, holding the template to the clay, you should get a nice hole. Like so. You can take your needle tool and run it along the inside and just pick up any spare bits and pieces you might have. You will be sanding it later, so don't worry too much about it. Okay, so there we have our hole. Now, I'm not even going to make a pattern. I didn't make a pattern for this. I just took my blade and I free cut. So at the base, I'm going to arc my blade and cut through both layers. Separate them. Now on one side, I will arc the blade and cut. On this side, I will arc the blade again and cut. And then finally, I will cut the arc at the top. Now this, of course, will be sanded after it's cured. So, you know, you can make kind of a rough cut and not worry too much about it because you'll refine it later. What you want to pay attention to, however, is the thickness of the side walls. Because when you wear rings, as you probably well know, if the sides are too wide, you can't really close your fingers. So just make sure that you make them fairly thin, and then you'll be able to close your fingers like so. Now on the back, I have made this little cutout piece, but I extend the corners a bit, and this really helps prevent the ring from turning on my hand, because elongating or lengthening the sides down like this will help keep the ring upright on your hand without having it move too much to the left or right. Okay. Now, how do we make those domino holes? Very easy. These are actually some kind of electrical something or other. I'm honestly, I'm sorry, I'm not sure exactly what they are, but they're quite cheap and they come in a lot of different sizes. and they mean something to someone, but for us, basically, they're really tiny round cutters. All right, so I'm going to cut through, all the way through, and then hold the ring down and lift the cutter out. So there's one. You're going to want to probably push the clay out of the hole so that the next hole you cut is nice and clean. I apologize, I can't really quite see where I'm positioned. All right, and then push the clay out again. And let's make one more. And pull it out. Okay, now I'm going to pull this to myself and look at it. I can see I did go kind of off, so I'm going to try to make it a little bit more pleasing by cutting a little bit off of this edge. All right, so now we're ready to cure this, and I'm going to cure it on one of these IKEA bowls because I like this curve. I mean, I could cure it flat. It would be fine flat, but I kind of like the arcing of it. So I'm just going to peel it off. And whenever you remove clay from paper like this, you're going to peel the paper from the clay, not the clay from the paper. Peeling the paper off of the clay is actually more gentle, and you won't stretch your clay as you're pulling it off. All right, so here we go. That is how you're going to cure it. Now, I cure from a cold oven, so I'll set my oven at 300 and cure this for 40 minutes. Now, here's one I did earlier. Ta-da! Now, this little corner here is slightly darkened, which means I think it was closer to the heating element than this corner. In this case, it doesn't really matter. It matters not at all, because this is supposed to be a natural material, right? It isn't. It's polymer clay, but it's supposed to imitate a natural material. And so there are imperfections in bone, and any natural material isn't going to be perfectly uniform. So it actually probably adds to this feeling that it's an authentic material. All right, so this is cured. Now, we're going to fill the holes with clay. So I'm going to take a bit of black, and I think I'll put just a little bit of liquid clay in the hole, which will help. I can't seem to find a clean brush. I don't know if this happens to you guys, but I can't seem to find one that doesn't have something on it. Okay, so let's take our liquid. Just put a little bit in the hole, like so. I'm going to be sanding this after it's cured, so I'm not too concerned about making it absolutely perfect at this point. So now let me take a little bit of this mixture of translucent and white, my scrap, and I'm going to push some into the hole from the black side. trim the excess away. And you know, I'm looking at it, I'm not too happy with it because I got a little bit of black in there. So I'm going to redo this hole. If you're not happy with it now, you're not going to be happy with it after it's cured. Okay, one more time. I need a bit more clay. And I think I'm just going to use the pearl, solid pearl. And rather than trimming it right now, I'm just going to push this pearl clay from the other side and push them together like that. That's a better strategy, I think. Trim the excess away from both sides. Now it's a little harder from the concave side. Just take your time and cut away, and you'll be sanding later anyway, so some of this excess will be sanded away. I'm just scraping the excess away with the tip and the corner of my blade. Okay? So I will continue and I will fill the holes and I will bake it again and then I'll be back. Well, I filled the holes with black on this side and pearl on this side. You can see how much smaller these holes are. Well, of course, that's because the top was stretched out over the bowl when it cured. Now, you can use your fingernails. I found that that actually was working better than my blade. So just refine them, and then you're gonna bake again in the oven. So I'll be back after this is baked. Okay, so I'm back again. Now here is the finished ring. It's cured and I sanded it. What you're going to do is you're going to sand with a coarse grit sanding block. This is coarse, but I've used it quite a bit, so you can see that it's more like a medium grit block, but you're going to sand the piece. And the goal here is to sand away any sharp corners and edges. So I did all 4 corners, and of course I did the edge here all the way around. I did the back. I softened the edges on the back as well. Now, to sand the hole, you're going to want something like this. This is a half round dowel that has been covered with a sheet of sandpaper. Now, I bought this in Germany. It was quite expensive. You don't really need this. You just need something round, like even a Bic stick, a cheap pen would work. Just take your sandpaper, wrap it around, and then refine and smooth the ring hole. Okay, so I then used this oil paint, Burnt Umber Winton oil color. Now, Leslie Blackford is the one who told me about using oil paint instead of acrylic. Acrylic paint was a nightmare for me. I would put it on, it would be too thick, I would wash it off, it would all wash off. Then I would try a slightly diluted bit, it would go on, it would beat up on the surface. I hated it. I never antiqued anything. Until Leslie told me, use oil paint. Now the oil paint penetrates and stains the clay in a way that acrylic paint does not. Acrylic paint sits on the surface, whereas oil paint actually sinks into the clay. It's perfect. You're going to want gloves too, because of course it's harder to get oil paint off your hands. Okay, now once you've done that, you're pretty much done. You're just going to set that aside and let it dry for a couple days. Takes a while. Now, as promised, let's go back to what you need to do this. you're going to need your faux bone. And that is the topic of another one of my free tutorials, basic tutorials. So go watch it and make this. You're going to need black clay for the back. You're going to need my template. You'll need the usual blade, the needle tool for cutting the holes. You're going to need some small cutters like these to cut the domino dots. Going to need a brush and some liquid clay, sanding block, some kind of round sanding implement. You're going to need acrylic paint along with gloves. And that is pretty much it. I mean, you don't really need much to do this particular project. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, if you want my template, please go to Prairie Craft. They're there. And in the meantime, I hope you make lots of rings. And if you have any questions, just put them in the comments and I will try to answer them. So until next time, I'm Donna, and thank you for watching. Bye-bye.